One of the surprises of week one was that rookie Oronde Gadsden was a healthy scratch, but the good news is we could see him on the field sooner than you think.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Droegemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 10 seasons, but this is our 8th year as a host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us your first listen. To make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Daniel, after the offseason that Orande Gadsden II had, I was very surprised that the Chargers made him inactive in week one. But I do not expect that to be a trend, and I think he's going to be suiting up and catching passes from Justin Herbert sooner than you think. Speaking of Justin Herbert, it's finally time to see the full version of Justin. Now, he does not have those shackles or restrictions on him. He can go play his game, which is going to be the best version of Justin Herbert. And also, the Chargers pass rush wasn't as potent as we would have liked it in the first game. Should we be concerned about that aspect?
I mean, it was a position group we were a little bit concerned about going into it. I don't think week one, even in a small sample size, made you feel better about it. But this episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every moment count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. David, we wanted to get into a Fan Mail Friday, and we have a bunch of fan mail questions to get into, so thank you to the everydayers out there for giving us this and letting us know what you wanted to talk about today. But I wanted to start with one of the surprises from week one, and this one is from Dan Talk Sports on Twitter, and it is, will Orande Gadsden be active in week two? David, it was sad not to see him last week. Do you think we're going to see him this week?
I do. I feel very, very strongly that we are going to see Oronde Gadsden II in week two against the Raiders. And I think it's because of the matchup that they have. I think you look at the secondary of the Raiders, I think this is a great opportunity to use somebody who, for me, I feel like this is a guy who's going to live stretching the field for the Chargers. I think it's just going to be the beginning. He's going to get his opportunities. Yes, they have Tyler Conklin. Yes, they have Will Dissly. But I feel like he brings a different element. He has more speed, and I think he's going to threaten the defense a little bit more, which is why I feel like he is going to get unleashed against the Raiders on Monday Night Football.
I hope we see him. I mean, I think the thing is that the Chargers only keeping two tight ends active on game day was a little bit of a surprise, right? Because Tucker Fisk, the other tight end on the active roster, was inactive in that game too. So it's like, man, they're really only going with Conklin and Will Dissly in this one. And matchups could be, part of the reason why. But I think the kind of hard thing for me, at least as far as this week, is like the Chargers running game also wasn't great last week. And I hope they don't pound their head into a wall trying to fix it this week if it's not working. But there is a plausible scenario where they try to bring up Tucker Fisk to try to improve that running game because he is the better blocker of the two. But I think you're right as far as the standpoint of, I do think we'll see him this year. I do think he brings something different to the offense, and I think it is also nitpicking because they had a great performance offensively last week, and you're not trying to take anything away from that. But when you're talking about a team that might have a better overall pass rush, has better edge rushers in this game that you're going up against with Max Crosby, you might want someone who can win quicker. And Oronde Gadsden brings that. I mean, neither Will Dissly or Tyler Conklin are great athletes by NFL standards. Obviously, they're world-class athletes. But Oronde Gadsden he is a guy that brings a different level of speed, a different level of athleticism, and route running to the position for the Chargers. And we saw that. I mean, he was the best receiving tight end throughout all of camp. And both of those other guys that were active ahead of him were also playing. So he definitely brings something different there. What I wonder is if they're going to be using their tight ends a lot to try and chip Max Crosby going up against Trey Pipkins out on the right side, and they're looking more for their tight ends to be able to get a chip, help out Trey Pipkins, and then maybe leak into the flat or leak into those areas. But you have to, wonder, okay, well, if you're scheming up these touches for a Tyler Conklin and getting him that much space on the play that he fumbled but got a huge chunk play, what would Oronde Gadsden be able to do with that kind of opportunity. But that brings us to Big Daddy E here, who says, do you think the inactives for each game will be game plan specific and only changing to plug in for injured players given how fantastic they looked in Brazil? Thanks, guys. Always appreciate your work. And I think this is a great question. Are the Chargers only doing this because they don't have any injuries? So, like, these are going to be the guys until somebody gets injured? Or do we think they're really going to keep some guys inactive, some guys active based on the matchup that's happening that week?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be based off of the matchup that particular week. I mean, when we're talking about the NFL, everything is so geared specifically to defeat the next opponent, right? So you're going to have guys that have certain skill sets that you want to have, and that's part of that game plan that's going to factor in. I do feel like we are going to see some guys that are going to be on that inactive list week after week after week. Kyle Kennard is probably going to be one of those guys until he's able to prove to the coaching staff that, you know, he can get out there and make an impact. And unfortunately right now in the season, there's not a lot of time or opportunity to do that because they're trying to install what they are trying to do to defeat the opponent. So we are going to see some guys rotate for sure week to week because, you know, hey, you want to try to beat the opponent how you need to beat them. But yeah, it's going to be a rotation. I think, you know, they're going to have guys in and out of that list because, you know, you're trying to do your best to try to win those games.
Yeah, I think I agree with you for the most part. I think the hard thing is we just have no idea because the second game hasn't happened yet, right? And that's why this is a question right now because we haven't seen if it'll still be the same guys inactive as it was last week. Obviously, this week, it's a little bit different because you're missing a Denzel Perriman almost certainly. So, like, that is a spot where, you know, Delshon Phillips also didn't practice so far this week, where you might have an extra spot for somebody to come up and you wouldn't necessarily know if it's being, like, game plan specific. But also, like, okay, well, if it is Oronde Gadsden, maybe that tells you, okay, we're going to try to spread the Raiders out.
Yeah.
And use that to help us against their ferocious pass rush, or at least their game-wrecking pass rusher, as opposed to trying to be more physical and out-physical them at the point of the attack and try to run the ball down their throat. We're going to keep kind of airing it out, spreading things out like last week. But we have another good question here from Caleb Collins, who says, do you think KLS and Trey Harris will each have a reception in the Raiders game? David, both guys got a target. Trey Harris got a first down and a reception in this last game. Do you think that both of them cracked the box score in week 2?
Yeah, I feel pretty good about that. And it's for the same reason why I feel like Orande Gadsden's going to play, because there is opportunities against this Raiders secondary to be able to stretch the field. And I like the fact that they got Trey Harris a catch in his first game to kind of get his feet wet, get him some confidence to be able to get a first down. That was a great play. I can't wait until they unleash KLS. He's somebody I'm very excited for, a guy that we saw stretch the field. It was a guy that we saw, really, excel in beating man-to-man coverage in front of you, had a beautiful touchdown, obviously, in the preseason. And, that doesn't always translate, but what we did see consistently was him to be able to go down the field and make the spectacular catch. He did that time and time and time again. And you have to believe that at some point, Justin Herbert is going to get an opportunity for KLS to get schemed up a chance to go stretch the field and go catch a deep bomb. And what better time for that to happen than on Monday night against the Raiders?
Yeah, I think the reason for optimism here is the fact that the Chargers used some 4 wide receiver sets last week, right? And actually had 4 of these guys on the field.
More so than they did at all last season.
Yeah, for Ben Solak, they had 5 last week, which doesn't seem like a huge amount, but it was 5 more than they had in 2024. So they are spreading things out a little bit. They are getting 4 receivers on the field at the same time. Both guys did have a target. I think they could both have a reception. Now, how much of an impact are they going to make is a different story, because I think the other part of this is just like, Quentin Johnston's coming off a top 3 to 5 game of his career last week.
This is true.
Right? Like, he's wide receiver 3, and, in my mind. Keenan Allen, obviously, I don't see coming off the field because of importance he brings in certain areas. But 9 catches and 90 yards and 1 touchdown in 4 games against the Chiefs last year, and he goes 5 for 79 and 2 touchdowns, because the big thing with him is not coming through in big games. He came up in a big game, and also, not only that, he torched the Raiders last year. 13 catches for 186 yards on a team that was lost, obviously, but easily the biggest game of his career came against this team. So those 3 guys who all had at least, 5 catches and 68 plus yards last week are going to be the main guys. But I do think we could see both these guys get a catch, because we almost saw it last week. But we do have more to get into, because we have to talk about if Greg Roman somehow, in a twisted turn of fate, is actually Justin Herbert's best offensive coordinator that he's ever had, and also if he'll let Justin Herbert keep being himself. We're getting into all that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. Want to give a shout out to the Chargers wide receivers who were streaking all over the field in Brazil. Quentin Johnston, Keenan Allen, and Ladd McConkey all came through in the biggest moments to take down the Chiefs. And when the pressure was on, they came through. No hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, this performance wasn't a fluke. The receivers are going to be on a streak again this week, I believe. And you can win every Saturday this season with DoorDash. And just like the wide receivers delivered for the Chargers, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday, keep the streak alive, fuel your game day, only with DoorDash. Terms apply, promo period through 11/18. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for a kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And if you want to win that, you can do it this weekend on this game because the odds are out, and the Chargers primetime matchup on Monday night against the Las Vegas Raiders, they are currently 3-point favorites. If you think the Chargers could win even by more than that and more convincingly, you can also do alternate spreads. If you think they're going to win by 14 plus and really blow out Pete Carroll and company, you could get that at plus 340. But I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet, player props, building a same game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. And it makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. David, we still have more great stuff to get into here, and I think we have a very good question from Brandon Mitchell on this Fan Mail Friday, who asks, do you think Greg Roman is Justin Herbert's best offensive coordinator so far? And I feel like this is such a tough question because the bar is very low, right? At least as far as what we've thought of most of these offensive coordinators. But how did you answer this one? I'm very interested.
Yeah, I think for me, when I looked at this, there's two ways to look at it. It's who was he able to produce the highest amount of stats with? And then the other is how did he have the most overall success as far as team success with wins, right? So when you look at this right now, I think, so far until Greg Roman is able to either supersede the stats that he was able to get with Joe Lombardi in 2021, where he had his best season of his NFL career, where he went over 5,000 passing yards and 38 passing touchdowns with a couple of touchdowns on the ground as well. Then, with Greg Roman, for him to supersede that, it's get to the playoffs and win a playoff game. I think if he does that, if he's able to get Justin Herbert that playoff win, that will, I think, leapfrog Joe Lombardi, that is, for being his best offensive coordinator. So if the stats don't beat him, then the playoff success, I think, will. Until that happens, I think it's probably Joe Lombardi.
Which is crazy because after 2021, he got fired after the next year because he was so bad, right? And that's the hard thing about this is like we had our frustrations with all these guys. And honestly, I think the right answer is either probably Kellen Moore or Shane Steichen as far as just offensive coordinators as a whole. But those seasons with Herbert were bad for one reason or another. I mean, the other thing is too about, the 2021 season, obviously Justin Herbert was turning the ball over much more than 15 times that year compared to only 3 times last year with Greg Roman. But obviously you've heard all of our frustrations with Greg Roman. So I'm not just going to come out here, and cherry pick and be like, well, yeah, he had one great game in 2025. Right. He's the best offensive coordinator, but I do think he has a chance to because he has a chance to, first of all, make it past 2 seasons, which is more than anyone else has ever done in Justin Herbert's career as his offensive coordinator. He has a chance to do it. Kellen Moore, even in games with Justin Herbert before he got hurt in 2023, was 17th in yards per game, 16th in points per game. So even, adding in or taking away the Easton Stick stats, according to True Media, even in that period, it wasn't one of the top offenses in the league. Whereas that Joe Lombardi offense was 5th in points per game, 4th in red zone efficiency, 4th in yards per game, 5th in third down percentage. That was the best season from an offensive coordinator, but that guy also got fired the next year, so it's hard to say he was an excellent offensive coordinator either. Got carried by, some good weapons that year. One of the better lines that Justin Herbert has played with, a healthy Rashawn Slater that year. I'm pretty sure he had Corey Linsley that year too, because that was Rashawn Slater's rookie season. So yeah, that was one of the better lines. He got an all-time Matt Filer season that year as an old vet.
Man, he was good.
For sure. But yeah, I mean, it's so hard to say the bar is low. Greg Roman will have a shot at it, though, especially if he kind of leans more into what he did last week, which is, I think, where Thier's coming for here when he says, Chargers OC Greg Roman was not fluke in week 1. The question is he willing to let Herbie play the way he is comfortable? And I think that's a good question, because he did feel like he was a little freer, a little less inhibited, used his legs more, obviously. Very clear that he has the green light there. And I do think this is something that hopefully he doesn't kind of revert back to what's comfortable, because sometimes when you struggle, you kind of revert back to going to what you know. And I think the most encouraging thing is that he's kind of evolved so far, seemingly this year. What do you think about this, David?
Yeah, so I think for this in particular, I think a lot of people need to remember that last year, Justin Herbert wasn't Justin Herbert at 100%. He was at 50% at max, right? He had the plantar fascia going into the season and then 2 high ankle sprains on both of his ankles. So Greg Roman couldn't unleash Justin Herbert in his current form because he wasn't healthy enough to do it. He could not move around. He had to protect Justin Herbert with the way he called plays and the way he called the game, and had to really condense and slim down the playbook because he wanted to keep him out there, because obviously even a Justin Herbert at 50% is better than a lot of quarterbacks out there, and he proved that last year with the season that he was able to provide. Now, Justin Herbert's ready to go. He's 100% healthy. He looks like he is. He feels confident. He looks confident out there, making the great plays, the great throws, the great reads. Justin Herbert is now able to go be Justin Herbert. And I think that is going to be the best version. A guy that can move around, move the pocket, that can extend the play, that can go get you a first down when you desperately need it. This is the best version of Justin Herbert. All of the restrictions are off. The training wheels are off. It's year 5 in the NFL, year 6 in the NFL for Justin Herbert. Now it's time for him to show what his full capabilities are.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen Greg Roman in the past have a lot of dual threat quarterbacks. I think the most encouraging thing here is the fact that, according to Albert Breer, Roman actually went up and visited Justin Herbert in the offseason and spent time with him, and not only, told him he could run and gave him the green light, but encouraged him to do it.
Love it.
From Albert Breer, Roman didn't just go to Eugene to bond with his quarterback, though. That was part of the idea. He was also there with the intent to help Herbert take his next steps as a player. Also, Roman saying, last year when he got his feet involved, great things happened. He scored a lot of points and won those games, Denver and Cincinnati. And notably, he didn't do that, and their loss to the Texans in that game too. So I think that is part of it. He also said he brought up a bunch of clips of Patrick Mahomes doing it and Josh Allen doing it, and said it was actually very fun and awesome to be able to beat Patrick Mahomes in that game the way that Patrick Mahomes has beat so many other people, which is you have everything covered, and then the quarterback runs and finds it anyway. So it does seem like he is pushing him to be more like that, which is awesome. It's what an offensive coordinator should be doing. At the same time, though, you know what the risk is, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because, and you know how much the offense can clam up if he's not 100%. But let's get to this last one here from O. Rubio, who says, did you guys miss third and Keenan as much as I did? I probably didn't as much as Derwin James did. From Omar from the Third and Thirsty podcast. David, I know you missed it.
I absolutely did. I've been clamoring for Keenan Allen to be back where he belongs, in lightning bolts, catching passes from Justin Herbert. It is a thing to behold. It's beautiful. It puts extra stress on the defenses. It's not just Lad out there that you can trust to get a third down conversion. Keenan Allen, third and Keenan, is there for a reason, because he's been doing it for over a decade.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it was so cool that he kind of just slipped back in there, and it really never, like, there was no like adjustment period, right? Like there was just, he was back and he was already kind of just doing everything that he already did the best when he was there, right? And I think that was the most encouraging thing. And the one thing you're talking about specifically here is third downs. And boy, did he come through on those. I mean, the Chargers converted over half of their third downs in that game, which is awesome. And I don't think that Keenan Allen being there is any coincidence for that. But the crazy thing is Keenan Allen had 3 of those third down conversions. We know Justin Herbert got one with his legs late in the game, right? He had 3 of the 7 third down conversions in that game. So, I mean, he instantly was in there showing exactly why he is valuable, because you can't just put all the attention on Ladd now on third down. You have to account for Keenan Allen. And there's only so many guys to go around, and you have guys that can actually punish it. So finishing their first game over 50% conversion rate, him being able to be on the field with Ladd McConkey and have that all still work out, and having them both on third downs is invaluable. So elite releases, still an insane route runner, and crazy football IQ, like the one where he just sat down in a little pocket on a third and a medium, and he's right there, option route, and he gets the first down. That's what Keenan Allen brings to the table. But I do want to talk about some things about the defensive side, because maybe masked a little bit in the Chargers win with some deficiencies on that side of the football. So we're going to talk about if there should be any concern about the Chargers cornerbacks and edge rushers and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward was Justin Herbert getting that final first down, putting the Chiefs away, as Greg Roman said, the way that Patrick Mahomes has done it to so many other people, using his legs to go seal it on a huge third down. No one was open. The pass rush was closing in, and the only way to move the Chargers forward was to take it upon himself and go win the game, and that's exactly what he did. This week, the Chargers have to keep the game moving forward and forget about last week, because they're playing the Raiders on Monday night. It'll be up to Herbert to go and show he can do it week in and week out. That's what keeps fans and players alike moving forward, always chasing the next great moment. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. David, we still have more on this great Fan Mail Friday, but first, thank you to all the everydayers out there for making us your first listen, as you always do. We have the best fans out there, and you guys have really been on board with us, especially since the season's been back, and that has just been so awesome to keep us going, to do, 6 shows in the last 7 games, 10 shows in the last, 11 days, whatever it is. It's a lot easier when you have the fans that we have. So thank you, as always, for making us your first listen. If you need a second listen, make sure you check out the double showing over at Locked On NFL, where you get Tyler the Madman rolling, giving you a shot of espresso to start your day, and Tony Wiggins taking you into the barbershop for the smoothest breakdowns in the business. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. Dave, let's get to this next Fan Mail Friday here. This is from V. Para, who says, should we be concerned with our pass rush, and should we look into bringing in another edge rusher? David, it's only a 1-game sample size. I had said last week, hey, hopefully Khalil Mack, continues what was a great camp for him and has a huge game. He didn't, and nobody really did. I'd say the pass rush was lacking to a certain extent, but also Patrick Mahomes just getting rid of the ball so quick made it really hard to evaluate this unit. We're going to get another chance to see them. But yeah, I'd say there's definitely, for me, a little concern about the pass rush, because I already had a little bit of concern going into the year.
Sure, yeah, there's a little bit of a concern there. I think you look at it and you're like, oh, they only got 2 sacks. That's not great. But they did generate 19 pressures, and that's 19 pressures on 39 pass attempts, which is, getting a pressure rate of about 48.7%. So that's not bad. I mean, you had 3.
Yeah, I think the problem is you could have multiple guys getting pressures on the same play. So I don't know if that's necessarily the exact. I don't think they pressured it on 50% of his dropbacks, if that makes sense.
Sure, yeah, I mean, but it's 3 from Bud Dupree, it's 3 from Derwin James, it's 3 and a sack from Deshaun Hand, 2 pressures from Khalil Mack. So yeah, you want to hope you get a little more pass rush productivity from that. But I think that's what it has to look like, and that's probably what it's going to look like, is getting contributions from everybody, not just your edge rushers, not just your defensive linemen, but also Derwin James getting in there, because he's going to be close to the line of scrimmage, getting after the quarterback. He's going to get his sacks too. You better believe it. It's definitely going to happen. But yeah, there's a little bit cause for concern, but also it's a 1-week sample size. So we can't take that for gospel right now. I think you look at it, you gather more information, you get some more data through a couple more games, and then I think you can properly label whether you should have concern or not.
One also, Thule led the team with 4 pressures too, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
he definitely was able to get some back there. But Mack only 2 pressures on 35 pass rushing snaps. Obviously, hoping for a little bit better, especially in a matchup against a rookie, even if he's a first round rookie. It's not a code red, right? But it is a concern. And like I said, you were banking on a lot. You were banking on Khalil Mack turning back the clock. You were banking on Tuli Tuipulotu taking the next step. I mean, we were talking about both of these guys getting double-digit sacks, right, at one point in the offseason. And obviously, I pushed back against that just because it's been such a rare thing in Chargers history. But yeah, I mean, through one game, yeah, the small sample size, a little concerned, not much more than what I already had going in when the whole thing was about trying to do it as a committee, right? They'll have potentially some better matchups to try to exploit this week. But the only big addition you made there was a 4th-round pick on Kyle Kennard, who's getting the Justin Eboigbe treatment through 1 week. So we'll see if he plays as little as Justin Eboigbe did that season as a rookie. But he only played 26 snaps, 1 for 1 so far on Kyle Kennard, being a healthy scratch. This is my thing. If you get near the trade deadline and you're like 6-2, right? You're 5-2, somewhere around that. Does Joe Ortiz say, okay, this team is good enough to go try to make a big move to help what is an obvious concern? I think that'll be kind of what's on my radar. If it continues to not be great, but the Chargers are still winning in spite of it. So let's get to this next one here from Raul, who's concerned about a different position group. He says, a little concerned about the cornerback room and staying with some fast guys. Thornton on the Chiefs should have at least 3 20-plus yard plays last week. Geno may be able to get us deep. David, any concern for you in that Chargers corner room?
I mean, I think for me, the concern is nobody's really kind of established themselves as a shutdown corner. I mean, I think maybe we all know and we've all felt very strongly that Tarheeb has the ability to do that. But also, like, they have a kind of cornerback by committee approach. They're going to rotate these guys to kind of find the best matchup. So, and also with the Chiefs, they love speed guys. This has been no secret ever since they had Tyreek Hill, a guy who, runs 4.2 and is one of the fastest guys in the league. Thornton, same thing, runs a 4.2, and Xavier Worthy, same thing. Like, they love that type of speed. Not every team is built that way, right? So you're not going to have to solve the same challenges as you will with playing the Chiefs as you will playing other teams. So is it a little concern? I mean, sure, it's a little bit of concern, but hey, they just shut down one of the most prolific quarterbacks in NFL history and beat them. Yes, he was down a couple of weapons, but he still had his Hall of Fame tight end with him and still made things close. So I think the defense did a good job, including the cornerback room.
Yeah, I thought for the most part they did a good job. I mean, Cam Hartwood definitely, some of those guys had a step on him in those moments and he didn't hit him. But it's not like the Chiefs didn't get their explosives. I mean, they had chunks of 38, 37, and 49 in that last game. And that's a lot of what kind of kept him in that game. And one of the keys going in was like make them earn it. And obviously they get the explosive before half. You get the 4th and 7 to Hollywood Brown, who's wide open. You get the big Travis Kelce touchdown too. But the thing is, and you're right, not everyone does have that speed. The Raiders do, though, and they do have Trey Tucker, who I believe was a 4.3 guy. They have Dante Thornton Jr., another speed demon for sure. Both of those guys just last week, there was multiple catches between the two of them. They averaged over 22 yards per catch, and it was Geno Smith finding them deep down the field and those guys making big plays. So I think when you have Tarheeb still, who was a 4.52 guy in the 40, which was surprising. I did not remember it being that slow, honestly. Cam Hart, another 4.5 guy. Dante Jackson, on the other hand, 4.32. But, he's Derwin's age, so probably not running a 4.32 nowadays. But either way, I do think, speed-wise in that group, maybe there is a little bit of concern. But I think to me it's just about the overall talent level and how well these guys together will be able to kind of provide, at the top end of things, especially if the pass rush is subpar. Because, I mean, watch what the Packers games, look like right now.
Yeah.
All those corners look like all pros right now because of how quickly that pass rush is getting home. So, like,
Michael
that
Parsons is a
the
beast.
other part of it too. Why we wanted him. But let's get to this last one here and end it with Brandon Sendow, who says, "Do the Chargers need to improve their 4th down defense since last year it has been bad? Do you agree, David? Do you agree?"
No, I don't. I think last year they were one of the best 4th down defenses in the NFL last year. They were very, very good at it. This year, they were very, very bad, obviously, 2 for 2 on allowing those 4th down conversions, but I'm not super concerned about it. I think, especially with how good they are in the red zone, and how good they are kind of preventing points when you get to that level, I think it's not so much of a concern for me. Obviously, whenever you get on fourth down, a lot of the times it's, hey, these guys are desperate and they're trying to get, continue to be competitive and try to win the football game. So I'm not super overly concerned with it. Again, it's a very small sample size, and also it's Patrick Mahomes, who is a wizard at extending games and extending drives. And, you've seen it. You give this guy any amount of time and he can make magic happen. So I don't know if that's indicative of what the Chargers are going to be on fourth down.
Yeah, I mean, it's too soon to tell what this season is going to be. But where I will push back is they actually weren't good last season against fourth downs. I mean, if you remember that Tariq Still pick six, I think in that moment it was like the only fourth down stop they had gotten in like 8. But per True Media, the Chargers allowed the third most fourth down conversions in 2024, and they ranked 22nd in percentage allowed, allowing over 62% conversion rate last year. 2023, you'd also be right. They were 5th worst in percentage in getting off the field on fourth down as well under Brandon Staley. I mean, it is one of the only blemishes, honestly, on Jesse Minter's, resume, to be honest. And, it can be a little bit fluky, a lot, at least as far as the total number of attempts. You have to be up in games for teams to be constantly going forward on fourth down against you. So as far as, total conversions, I don't think that's that crazy because, I mean, even percentage-wise, one of the teams that was worse than the Chargers in fourth down stop percentage last year was the Eagles, who, take out pick six and all those things, they're, Daniel Popper told us they actually, if you kind of adjusted for everything, had the best scoring defense in the league when you take away the pick sixes and stuff like that. So it can be a little bit fluky, but it hasn't been good so far. I mean, 3 for 3 against Patrick Mahomes is not going to be something I'm going to overreact to, especially because they were able to win the game anyways. But yeah, I think the more concerning thing is 4th and 7, a dude's wide open, right?
Yeah.
You had earlier one in the game, a fourth down, and you have a running back just wide open in the flat. Nobody's going with him at all.
On a pretty prototypical fourth down call too.
100%.
When you see all the time.
Yeah, 100%. Guy, you try to bunch people up, you get people moving around, you're trying to set picks and things like that, but just a wide open. And then the other one, a short, where I think they should be better, honestly, is just the physical nature of 4th and shorts, right?
Yeah.
Being able to get off the field, maybe not against the tush push, but against the normal teams, you are bigger, you are more physical. They did have a 4th and 1 where it ended up, Kareem Hunt bounced it off tackle and ended up being a 6-yard gain where they did kind of stuff things up. But that is one place I do think they'll be better at than they were last season. But that is going to wrap things up. Thank you guys for participating in Fan Mail Friday. We appreciate the everydayers out there. And if you guys want to hit us up for one of these shows and get your questions in, you can do that at Locked On OAC on Twitter, at Locked On Chargers on Instagram, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. We also put a post out on YouTube as well. But you can also call into the voicemail line at 323-524-7924 and give us your 30-second Chargers question there. And that will be a great way to get on the show, too, because we love that old school AM radio feel and getting your guys' voices on the show to represent you that way. But Monday Night Football, a chance to go 2-0 inside of the division, a chance for Jim Harbaugh to break the tie with Pete Carroll as far as 6-6 right now, get the leg up, welcome him back to the NFL in that way. We're super excited about it. Back with you guys Monday morning to give you the keys for success. But until then, take it easy and go Bulls.